Now, to continue the lesson, it says in the Zohar that before God created the world, that all that existed was God. That God filled up the entire existence of actually everything. So all there was God, to put it in the most plain, simple terms. And that in order to create the world, which we say the world was created yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, that the concept of bria yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, which of course is by God, and only God has the power to do that, that this is a central concept in Chassidus that is centrally related to the infinite greatness of God. And it goes as follows: that before the world was created, there was total nothingness, and only God existed. And God, with his infinite godly power, which we say that God is a kol yachol, he's all-powerful, could do anything, that in a fraction of a moment, or even without a moment, because time is a creation, God created the existence of the world. And before God created the world, like we said, the world was totally nothing. And then, out of total nothingness, God brought the world into existence. And that is not like anything else that we create in this world, because everything already exists, and we just change the shape or the form of the object, which that's called yesh mi yesh, something from something. And getting back to God creating the world, what it says in the Zohar, that before God created the world, all that existed was God. In order to so to say make room for the world, because since God was filling up all of existence, he had to make room for the world by the central concept in Chassidus of tzimtzum, contraction, which this idea of tzimtzum, contraction, which is centrally related to bria yesh me'ayin, creation, something from nothing, is in other words, tzimtzum, contraction of God's by God, is a very extremely esoteric and difficult concept to understand, and I'm not going to get into it right now. But in simple terms, we said before that God, all that existed before God created the world was God, and then God used the concept of contraction to make room for the world, and then God brought the world into existence, something from nothing. So then you could say, before God created the world, there was only God. And now that God created the world, it looks like there's God in also a world. But that's not possible because it says in Torah, in many, many places, that Eino Mevado, there's nothing else besides God. And besides, another idea that makes it impossible is that if you say that before the world was created there was only God, and then when God created the world, there was God and a world, that would imply a deficiency or a less than perfection in God. That something went down or was descended when the world was created. So the way Chassidus answers that, as the Plus-Rebbe has mentioned many times, is that one second, I want to refer to my notes. Is that the world is batel b'metzias. The classical language of Chassidus is batel b'metzias to Hashem. That it's nullified in existence with respect to God. That since we say, and this is a very deep concept in Chassidus, very deep, and it takes many years to even make a significant amount of headway in understanding it with the human intellect, but basically, one second. So we said, batel metzias, nullifying existence with respect to God. That since God created the world, yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing, that means to say that the whole existence of the world is God's power, which is not separate from God because there's nothing else besides God, like we said from the Zohar before he created the world. And then the next step would be that since the whole world is godliness, and actually God himself, the world is nothing relative to God. And that's how we preserve the concept in Torah, and especially of Chassidus, of Eino Mevadov, there's nothing else besides God. And even after the world was created, that God exists now, after the world was created, exactly as he did before the world was created. It's only that from our point of view, from the creation's point of view, there we experience the reality of the everyday world. And I want to finish up by saying that the tachlis, the purpose of the entire Torah and its commandments is to cleave to God and be close to God. And actually by studying Torah, we unite with God's will and wisdom, which he put into the Torah. By doing the commandments of the Torah, we also unite with God, which the word mitzvah can also mean connection, that we connect ourselves to God. And the whole purpose of the Torah is to be close and united with God. And this means every Jew and the entire Jewish people. So that's the conclusion of this year. I may continue other series in this subject of Gedulas Hashem, the infinite greatness of God. But this is the first year, the first lesson.